As a woman on an upward trajectory, there's critical information and skills that you will not learn on the ascent until you reach the executive levels when the stakes are at the highest. This causes women to abandon their career aspirations, become disillusioned, or simply stop trying to get promoted. In today's episode, we are going to hear directly from a prior award-winning C-suite executive on a mission to change that. She left corporate America and is now training many smart, ambitious, talented women who want to ascend into critical leadership and executive roles by training them on the secrets that no one else will tell them, so their path is easier, less stressful, and makes a greater impact. Welcome to the Women's Leadership Today podcast, a feature of Women's Leadership Today. I'm your host, Nikolette. Today, I'd like to welcome Berta Aldrich. Berta is an award-winning C-suite executive turned author of a top-rated, best-selling book, keynote speaker, and trainer who consults with companies and trains executives to outperform within their industry. Women's Leadership Today will be launching the Women's Leadership Today Executive Development Masterclass, designed and led by Berta in September for aspiring and existing women executives who want to know and immediately start using the secrets of success. You may also know Berta as the host of the Voices of HR podcast, which is usually filmed right in the studio. Welcome, Berta. How does it feel to be on the other side of the interview today?
Oh boy, how the tables have turned. But in all seriousness, it is such a pleasure to be here with you, Nikolette. Thank you so much for having me.
And I am so excited to get into this interview and kind of learn more about this upcoming masterclass.
Well, I'm excited.
So let's get started, okay? Can you start by telling us why this mission to help women across the globe ascend to senior leadership positions in the first place?
Oh, absolutely. What a great question to start. So, you know how sometimes you have an experience or experiences and you become like compelled to do something about it. And so for me, it was the time that stats started illuminating themselves when I was conducting research for my book. And what I discovered was kind of the over architecture of the research was that there are so many women that should be in leadership and executive positions today that never got the chance to ascend really to their full potential. And I found two reasons for this in the research. Number one, the higher the performer a woman is today, the higher the likelihood that she will encounter career limiting experiences. And I would categorize these experiences under the umbrella of conflict and toxicity. And far too often, these very disruptive situations in the workplaces pushes them off their upward trajectory, and they don't even realize what's happening until it's over. And it's affected them in a very profound and negative way. And that led me to aha number two in the research, which is they aren't prepared for the executive experience. They do not have this key knowledge or what I call the playbook of answers for executive levels. And the reason is because women are constantly being told to be a great leader and to focus on your people and to drive performance, all outcomes that make them perform downward into the organization. So they are not being coached, trained, or prepared for the executive ranks. So most women are left to really figure it out as they go along. And that means that you have to hunt and gather people such as mentors or sponsors who will support you while you're trying to perform and be a great leader and dedicate time to figuring out your career. And what I found is that no one is telling people, and women in particular, what they need to do to be a success at the executive levels. So now I've dedicated my career to telling women what no one else will so they can ascend to levels that they so deserve and be incredibly successful when they arrive.
It's so interesting what you said before about how women are taught one thing, but it doesn't help them when they get to those, if they even get to those executive positions, which is already very, very difficult. Can you
Exactly.
explain a little bit about why that is? What are women taught that doesn't help them in the executive level?
Yeah. So, there was really a point in time over the last, I would say, 30 to 40 years where women are entering and entered the workforce. And most organizations were not prepared for the diversity that they brought to the organization. They knew that it would increase their revenue. They knew that they were great leaders. They knew that it would increase profits to have women join, but they didn't know how that was going to impact. And what I found in the research was the impact, because most companies were not prepared for it, actually created this pot of toxicity that affected women at 2 times the rate of their male counterparts. And so it wasn't just that women weren't taking the opportunity or didn't have opportunity. It was actually that they were really being held back because they weren't being given the answers in order to succeed.
So is that kind of why you're so passionate about this upcoming class, right?
Oh, I am so excited about this class because I know what women need. I've been there. I've conducted the research. I know how it works. And I've heard inside baseball stories from women who are CEOs and senior executives to women who are 5 years into their career. Women from all across the globe called me and sent me emails after the book, was out in the marketplace. And so I know what I'm telling them works because the women now that I'm coaching are having incredible success. So on the flip side of that, what I'd also say is let's give credit where credit is due, because I am simply giving them the tools and telling them and training them on the knowledge and skills that they didn't even know that they needed so that they could progress, and they're using them. So they get the credit for all of that. Plus, they get the credit for going to their employer and saying, hey, I am worth more, and I need you as my employer to invest in me so that I can be of more value back to you. So these women are actually advocating for themselves. And I'm just making it a heck of a lot easier so that they can be a mom and a wife or a partner and take care of their parents and have a career without all this conflict and toxicity and baggage that comes with executive level positions today.
I love that. You're not building leaders from scratch. You're just going in and pulling out what's already in there and then giving them the information they need, right? To make that upward, movement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're doing the work. I'm just giving them the playbook of answers.
So you mentioned your book, and I've read it, and it's amazing.
Oh,
So I kind of want to go and touch on that a little bit more. So your book is Winning the Talent Shift.
mm-hmm.
In the book, you predicted a lot of what's happening in the workplace today. For those who haven't read it, can you go into a little bit about that and just explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yes. Unfortunately, the predictions are coming true.
Mm-hmm.
So the book actually unveiled this conflict within our workplaces today that is directed primarily at women. And I get very granular and very clear in the book on what that conflict looks like. And then what I did was, as a trained business strategist, when I played that research out over the next 5 years, what I predicted is, and what is coming true, is that Gen Z, who will make up 25% of our workforce in 2025, who is graduating the highest number of women and the highest number of women of color, will not tolerate this conflict and toxic behavior in the workplace.
Good for
And
them.
mm-hmm, exactly. That's why I love Gen Z for so many reasons. And this is one of them. And they aren't tolerating it. In fact, we had Catherine Minshew, who is this rock star CEO of the Muse, on our podcast, Voices of HR, a few weeks ago. And they conducted research and they concluded that upwards of 80% of Gen Z have experienced workplace toxicity already and are voting with their feet. Those that experience toxicity will leave their workplace within 2 to 6 months. And unfortunately, as I predicted as well, and it is being shown in her research, is that women in the workplace are experiencing this toxicity at a higher rate than their male counterparts. So companies today don't realize that toxicity and conflict is a real barrier for them. And most are not acting upon it, but they really need to take notice because Gen Z and women really are starting to create the change for themselves because the ecosystems within the companies are not doing it for them.
Yeah, well, we're tired of it. We're tired of getting pushed around, right?
Well, we want the same opportunity,
So moving into this, now that women are fighting for what they deserve, right? And they're being more assertive and asking for what they're worth.
Mm-hmm.
Then do companies then have to head towards a more level playing field, right? They're going to have to.
Yeah.
So what is your definition of a level playing field? How does that look coming up, and how did that look in the past?
Wow, this is such a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked this before. So, okay. So in the past, I would say leveling the playing field meant that a company would make life easier for women so that they could work. And that included maybe on-site daycare or paying for nannies at night while they traveled. And sometimes there was flexibility. There were some progressive companies out there who offered flexibility 25, 30 years ago. And all of that was the right thing to do. I would say the other initiative to level the playing field was to give women certain opportunities. So in some instances, companies made it a priority to promote women. Mm-hmm. But again, they didn't think through the impact. So right. Women they were placed in these roles where they were sometimes perceived as tokens, or not enough, that they didn't have the skills, and that they were handed opportunities. But in reality, they were never trained on the culture or the expectations at those levels because they were really breaking this glass ceiling.
Yeah.
And it was completely foreign to most. So they were unprepared for the conflict and the toxicity and the game and the playbook at that level. And so I would say case in point here is that women today are 2 times more likely to encounter career limiting experiences than their male counterparts. So the only thing really back then that it was leveling was the women who were simply trying to exercise their opportunity. So my definition of leveling the playing field moving forward is that everyone has the same playbook of answers, that women have the same information before they arrive at the manager or executive level and are given the tools to more easily navigate it. And that's why I'm so passionate about providing women the playbook of answers so that they can level their own playing field, regardless of their profession or company, so that they can achieve the rightful place within their organization and industry. Women have the talent, the intellect, the drive. They just need to know the playbook of answers. That will level the playing field.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to ask you a little bit of a spin-off question, if you don't mind here.
Sure.
So for men moving up into those positions, are they given training, or is this something typically that they learn along the way because they're expected to move up into these positions? What have you seen?
Yeah, I would say, I'm going to try to give a good analogy here off the top of my head, but because a majority of men were the ones at the manager up to CEO, right? Mm-hmm. They made up the leadership of an organization. The culture, therefore, was a male culture. And as we all know, males act, think, strategize differently than women. And so it wasn't their fault But what I'm saying is when women then entered that arena, which is what it was an arena, it was a male playbook. And the males didn't think about it because they didn't realize that they had kind of developed it, right?
Right. You don't
And
realize the difference when you're living it. You don't realize that there's something different.
no, not at all. And so they really expected women to adapt to that existing playbook. And women got there and they were shocked because it's not how they think, act, perform. They did not feel at home. It's kind of like suiting up for, let's say, a baseball game, and you get there and it's full on pads football, contact football.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what most women experienced. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a really good analogy right there on the spot. I got a little bit of anxiety just thinking about that scenario.
Right. Exactly.
So let's touch on high performers, which is a really central theme in your book, right?
Yes.
So can you first explain what a high performer is? Because you would think it'd be self-explanatory, but you really deep dive into it in the book.
I do. I do. Because I think women in particular, and even men, need to know what it looks like moving forward. And it's very different than what it's looked like in the past. So let me give a little context first. So the world at work obviously has changed dramatically
Yeah.
over the past 40 years, but mostly over the last 5 to 10. You think about technology and globalization and the way that we live and work. And so what happened in corporate America is that senior executives started really focusing a lot of their time on strategy to keep companies progressing and profitable because the speed at which they had to make decisions was so fast.
Yeah.
That left the execution to the mid-level executives and managers. So at some point, those two levels bifurcated. And what that left the mid-levels doing was there was a gap then in knowledge for mid-executive levels because they weren't exposed any longer to strategy or driving business results or navigating conflict. And these are all key skills that you must exhibit at the senior manager and executive levels. So the high performer of the future will have those skills before they enter senior manager or mid-executive ranks, because it will not only provide women the information that they need to succeed, but it will also help the company perform better. Because today, 61% of senior executives fail to meet their objectives the first 18 months to 2 years in the job because they're unprepared for the job. And then I read the other day in a Wall Street Journal article that said only 14% of those in succession plan pipelines have the skills required to be a leader of the future. So it's imperative for women who are in the role today, who will be in the role in the next 2 to 5 years, or who are aspiring to be in the role to be ready. So a high performer exhibits strategic acumen, business acumen, and conflict management. And then when I'm consulting with companies, I also encourage them to look for certain personal traits, such as high character, ambition, intellect, leadership, and community service.
And for high performance, is this something that you find is innate in people, or is it something that can be cultivated, can be learned?
Absolutely can and should be learned. But I would say that the real word out of that question is cultivate. So, for example, women who are early career or even mid career have the skills and talents of a leader, but in order to help them find their greatness, they must have opportunity and investment and knowledge. And whether it's about toxicity or whether it's about strategic agility, you have to cultivate that into most individuals. Most individuals don't have that coming right out of college or being hired into entry level, let's say, management trainee positions. So those are two keys to driving high performance: opportunity and investment. So let me give you an example here. So early in my career, I was working 80 hours a week. I thought that I was just going to work my way right into these higher levels. And thank goodness at that point in time, a new role came up that just lit me on fire. I wanted this job so bad. And I applied for it, even though I really didn't have the experience or the background for it. But boy, did I have a desire. And I was ambitious. I wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to execute on it. And I didn't know at the time, but it was also one of the highest priority projects for our division. So by some miracle, I got the job and was fortunate to work for one of the best bosses at that company who cultivated me and trained me and educated me. So I got the experience from a high-performing woman executive in action every single day. And that opportunity ended up launching me into this whole new realm of my career. And so I would say, most women are not fortunate to have that experience, right? So they have to go find the opportunity and they have to ask for the investment on their own, which are two keys to cultivating high performance.
So those are some really great tips to kind of, define a high performer so that you can recognize the high performance in yourself, right?
Yes.
And then ask for what you need. Ask for that buy-in, for that support from your company, especially if you're not getting it. That's the time to take action, right?
That's right. Because you cannot control, I think what's happened with most ERGs or women efforts within organizations is they're trying to create mass and push the agenda up. And it's making some progress, but not enough. So what you have to do as an individual is you have to train yourself. So regardless of whatever company or ecosystem or culture that you're operating in, that you can still exhibit those high performance tactics and deploy them regardless of whatever job or company you're at.
So let's jump back into the direction of the masterclass because I'm so excited to learn a little bit more. So you talk about telling the women's the secret of success, right? Introducing this playbook. And I don't want to give everything away, not that we could since it's like a 3-month program, right?
Right.
But can you go into a little bit about maybe what some of those secrets are? Just a little teaser for us.
Sure. All right. So let me give you the big one.
Okay.
And I would say that the biggest secret that women are not told today is what is expected at the executive levels. It's a complete mystery. And I think it's in part because what you don't know won't harm you, right? Until you reach those levels. And all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I expected. And then the woman feels stuck or she feels some responsibility to just kind of take it. And it pains me because it's so uncomfortable to hear a lot of these secrets that I expose in my one-on-one coaching and now in this masterclass. But it is also so liberating for the women to know what they are and how to overcome them. So that's why I'm on this mission to coach and train these women so they know and are prepared. And if you do know, it's so much easier.
And I can imagine it is such a relief, especially if you are already in that executive position and you're already experiencing all those things that you didn't realize were coming.
Right.
To hear from you in a setting like this, you're not crazy, right?
Right.
Like this is all supposed to be happening, just no one prepared you for this. And for the women coming into these positions or for the women aspiring to rise to these positions, to have this preparation, I can imagine is just invaluable.
It is because it eliminates all the things that you don't like about the job and it helps you focus on the things that matter so that then you have the energy when you get home for the children, for the husband, for the partner, for the parents to live a life, right?
Yeah.
Most women today think that they can't have a life if they achieve those levels. And I would say most who are at those levels had to make some critical decisions when they sat in those seats. But in the future, companies need to realize, and the women are realizing as well as Gen X, that they don't have to give up a life in order to perform well at those levels.
And can you give us kind of the real broad overarching themes? What kind of topics do you go into in this course? And how do learning these things that you're going to go over help to support women either moving into those
Mm,
positions or already in those positions?
mhm. So the course in general is number one, giving you the knowledge that you need, the strategic agility, the business results, the conflict management, right? So that you're knowledgeable about all of those things. So there's nothing that you're lacking once you are in those roles or aspiring to those roles. That's number one. Number two, so that's an upward plus, right? We're going to tell you what you need to know. Then it's also, how do you eliminate the risks of the position? So what are the ooey gooey things that you will get stuck in at that level that end up taking you off your trajectory? So we illuminate those secrets. And again, that helps you stay in the job, helps you focus on what matters. And then number three, the other biggest component is how do you need to be prepared personally for this
Mm,
job? And I see that is a third component that most women are never told,
yeah.
is that, are you financially prepared? Are you prepared health wise for this position? And so there's little nuggets of information that no one ever tells you that we go through so that you are so prepared to outperform at this level.
That is super interesting because I imagine, I mean, you know, with the age of the internet and technology, you have so many options out there. You're just flooded with information. But I can imagine that taking the women's personal the woman's personal life into account is
Mm-hmm.
not something that is typically offered. That's not something
Right.
I hear about often. Is
Yep.
that kind of sets the course apart a little bit in that way?
It does. It does. And again, to your point that you made earlier, most women don't know that it's out of sync because they've never achieved these levels before. And so they don't know what they should be feeling, what they shouldn't be feeling, how should they prepare. And so, this does that. It helps them. It helps prepare them so that they're ready.
Absolutely. So, how can organizations use this course to support their women leaders moving up or already in these positions? And how can women who need this information and know that this is the way to move forward, to succeed, to grow, how can they convince their organization to buy in and invest in them to get the training and support they need?
Well, I would say first and foremost, ask. Because if you want to provide more value to your organization, you need to have this type of information. Number two, if you want to ascend and make it easier for you, you need to have this information. The problem is most women never ask.
I feel that 100%.
Yes. And I think now on the flip side, as a prior C-suite executive, and I would have people on my team come to me and say, I'd like to attend this conference, or I'd like to attend this webinar, or whatever. My question would be, okay, how does it fit within your personal plan? Or, what is the ROI? How are you going to use this in your current position? Well, the easy answer here, when you get that question, which you should, is that I can actually apply this to my current job. Because what we teach, you can apply whether you are a team leader, a manager level, a mid-level executive, or even a senior executive. So they just need to advocate for themselves, be ready for the pushback, but the value is there. The ROI is incredible on this program.
Yeah, amazing. And this might sound a little weird, but there are women like me out there who just don't have the words, right? Can you give us maybe like a little, not something super long, but maybe like a little summarized script of what you could say to your senior leaders to say, I need this support. This is why I need this support, and this is why you should invest in me.
Sure, let's do this off the cuff. So you're in a one-on-one and you say to your leader, I would like to continue to make a bigger impact on this organization while continuing to ascend into levels where I'm going to feel challenged and where I'm going to add value. And so there is a new program that I have found out about through, it's called a Masterclass for ascending executive women. And I would like the money or I'd like the company to invest in me. And I would like to go through this program. It's a 6-month program. And I know that I will have a high ROI because it helps me perform better every month in my job. How's that?
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah. Some of us just aren't good at improvising. So it's good to have something at least to work off of, right? Like you don't have to say those words.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah, a little something, just a little something.
Yeah.
You don't have to have those words exactly, but it kind of gives you a direction of like, okay, here's how I can say it. I'm going to practice in front of the mirror. If you're like me, that's how you're going to do it, right?
Yep.
Until you have it perfect.
And be confident. Be confident when you go in. Yes, you're asking for something, but you're not asking them to give you an additional raise. You're asking for them to invest in you.
Right.
And that's what's different here. You're going to give them something back exponentially.
Right.
Right? So that's where be confident about it. Walk in and know that this is what you want to do.
Right. Know what's going to help you, know what's going to help the company, and walk in prepared with that information and that confidence that you deserve it.
Absolutely. Always.
Fantastic. So this has been really wonderful, Berta. As we wrap up, can you give kind of either a summary of everything we've gone over, just a quick 111, or maybe some last minute tips for women listening?
Absolutely. So I would say you can have it all. You can have it all. And you can have it all if you have the knowledge, the training, and the skills of what is actually expected at the manager, executive levels, or senior executive levels. Your job no longer has to become your life. You can actually have a life and then go to work. So, but you have to understand the playbook. You have to have the playbook of answers to understand what it really takes to be successful. And once you have that information and leverage the knowledge, you will become unstoppable.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Berta.
Oh, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity and for helping women find their own success in life and work.
And thank you to all our listeners for joining us today. Be sure to check out and register for the Women's Leadership Today Executive Development Masterclass launching in September. That's designed and led by Berta. You can find the link in the episode description. We release 2 episodes a month, and you can watch us on YouTube or listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite streaming service. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment today on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a great day. Thank you for listening. The Women's Leadership Today podcast is just one feature of the Women's Leadership Today community. We empower women to advance in their career through targeted professional development learning experiences and resources, such as live and on-demand courses, customized training solutions, up-to-date publications, and more. Visit womensleadershiptoday.com to join our community and take your career to the next level. Together, we can empower women everywhere to lead, innovate, and inspire change.